No.
We are live.
We are live. It's Senate Appropriations, February 18th. We are going to try to finish up the Budget Adjustment Act of fiscal year 25. We have this theme, Grady, Grady. We had O Grady this morning. Today it's just Grady.
Today it's just Grady, but I'll have to suffice. Okay, so we'll go through a few different documents. I passed some things out. First off, we'll just go through H-141 as passed by the House. So the committee, if you have the document I passed out last Friday.
One or this one?
The one from last Friday, which would be
This one?
Yes.
69 pages. It's all black and white. There's no highlights.
Wait.
44, correct.
44 pages.
Correct.
Oh, that's the one I read over the weekend. So.
You read the wrong one. It was 69 pages.
I think,
Mine's the 69.
the
Oh,
chair.
this is the one you got printed out Friday.
Yes, so yours is different just because I printed off a new copy for you.
Okay.
So starting with section 50, you'll see 500,000 general fund for community grants related to health equity. The first House change is in E1. That's the additional 1.8 million for the General Assistance Emergency Housing Program.
Tell me what page that's on.
I have page 27, but my version is now different than yours.
So you're talking 50?
It'd be page 1 of 2.
Oh, it's right on page
Section
1.
50,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
So the first change the House made, you'll see in E1 of section 50, this is bumping up the appropriation for the General Assistance Emergency Housing Program by $1.8 million.
This is B1.
No, sorry, so the other document there.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
The next change the House made in this section will be toward the end in O4. This is the 10 million general fund for provider stabilization grants. There's language related to that later in the bill. There was initially 4 million in the GovRec. The House bumped this up to 10 million per the administration's recommendation. And then in sub 5, there's 11 million for the alternative payment model reconciliation payment to Brattleboro Retreat. The House pulled that in from the GovRec FY26 budget.
So number 4, the $10 million. Senator Westman was going to have language on that one.
Yes. So
It's later.
yes. So
it's going to be part of this document.
correct.
Okay.
All of the Senate changes are in a separate document that we'll go through in a little bit. In W1, there's 8.6 million general fund to VHCB for various housing initiatives. So that is the first instance of some money that's being pulled from that 14 million that was going to the treasurer to make up for the e-board switch. So that's that pocket of money, and then another 2.8 million general fund to complete pilot projects identified in 2022. Action Resolves number 186. So that's the developmentally disabled housing. So that's another pocket of that 14 million.
Senator Lyons has a question.
Well, my question is, I want to be clear, offer clarity. How do we offer clarity on the sentence where it says, enhance capacity for the production and preservation of, and then it goes mixed income rental and home ownership, including improvements to manufactured and communities. Does that mean including improvements to manufactured homes and communities, permanent homes and emergency shelter? I'm trying to understand the meaning of the full sentence together. Is it including improvements to permanent homes and emergency shelter? Or does it mean
So
enhancing capacity by building more permanent homes and emergency shelter?
So it's delineating a number of uses that the VHCB can use this money for. So the first would be production and preservation of affordable mixed income rental housing and home ownership units, including improvements to manufactured homes and communities. So that is all one purpose.
Okay.
And then permanent homes and emergency shelter would be the second. So the preservation element for mixed income rental and home ownership units could include improvements to manufactured homes and communities.
Okay, should there be a semicolon after communities? Manufactured homes, I'm trying to sort out, if I were reading this and I were naive about it, what would I think the legislative intent was? Because we've run into legislative intent problems recently around homelessness and housing.
I can definitely add semicolons to this. I would note that this is the same language that was in Act 113 in a different section. So this language mirrors that section of Act 113.
Which was?
The FY25 budget.
Oh, the 20. Well, that's where we had problems.
Okay.
Okay.
Section 51, so the House made updates to the allocation of the property transfer tax per legislative intent. So you'll see that in sub A, sub 3. And per the administration's technical letter, there are some updates to those allocations that we'll go through in a little while. And I would note for the committee that there are updates to the administration's technical letter updates. So,
But in sub A, sub 2, and sub 3.
yes, so that the House changes are in sub 3, notwithstanding 24 PSA 4306A amounts in excess of $9,052,113.
There's a change in 2 as well. Basically, version 9 on page 30.
Right, so that is not a House change that came over from the GovRec. Section 52, so this is the transfers section. The House pulled in the state liability self-insurance fund transfer of $3 million.
Where's 52?
Where'd you go?
That's 53.
Oh, yeah. Page 6.
Yep.
Okay, what was the House change again?
The House change was pulling in the state liability self-insurance fund transfer, $3 million from the FY26 GovRec.
Oh,
Yes. And later on in the language packet, you'll see that another transfer is being made related to the treasurer's request.
okay.
The reversion section, I think we can skip over. I think Emily went through this, so for all intents and purposes, that section is already closed out.
Is there do you have a rule of when you use cents and when you don't?
So in appropriation language, we try to avoid using cents just because it makes sense to do so. In the reversions, the administration sends them over to show how precise they're being in their accounting, I believe.
Well, and
But not always. Sometimes there's like above in unclaimed property, one number has cents, no number doesn't.
so when, Emily Burham from the fiscal office, so when you're like emptying a fund, right? You wanna get all,
Yeah,
you only leave 12 cents behind, so you put the cents in. If you're doing, same with a appropriation that has cents left in it, you don't wanna leave 12 cents just hanging, so that's when the cents come over.
So there is a reason.
Yeah,
There's
there's a
a
method to
logic
that.
to your.
Does that make sense, Brenda?
I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
He started it.
okay, was that all? I interrupted you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Section 54, the reserve section, I think we can also skip over for all intents and purposes.
So we're gonna see those numbers on Emily's sheet.
Right. Actually, looking at it now, the reserves, so I know there was some committee discussion of sub D in the reserve section. So this was proposed language, the House accepted from the GovRec. related to fiscal year-end balance closeout. So any funds remaining, notwithstanding the statutory requirements for those funds to be directed to pensions and such, would be reserved for permanent housing, property tax relief, and other uses determined to be in the best interests of the public. So I believe the committee is evaluating.
So in here, you'll have the cross out of that language?
So since this is new language, it just wouldn't appear in the committee's bill.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it harder to track? I guess. We just don't get credit for doing it, or not? Okay. So how would you, if we didn't include it, why would you go over the fact that we didn't include it?
It wouldn't appear in the committee's bill. It would just be on the record in the committee decision during this discussion that the committee is taking it out.
But when would you do that? Because this is when we're gonna talk about changes we're gonna make, because right now we're not talking about changes. So it seems like you'd wanna have, even if it's not in here as a cross out,
Somewhere it'd have to exist.
yeah, exist that we're having action. Emily Burton,
Yes, so the thing with the BAA in the budget is you do a strike all amendment.
yeah,
So you're gonna strike the whole house version and put in all, the like, some language will repeat itself.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're doing to Bloomer, but as far as our community discussion, if we don't have it in here, and it's something we were taking out of the house, when would we discuss it?
I think now would be the time to discuss it.
Right now.
But I take the chair's point. If it's not in that document, it's hard for us to mentally group it with the other decisions, the other proactive
If
decisions.
the purpose of this document is to go through all our changes, I would want to do it when we're doing our changes and not do it here.
Okay.
But we just have to remember to do it. Senator Watson?
Yep, thank you. So this is section 54, and I was just looking that up in here, and there's no section 54. And so I guess
That's what he's saying.
that's right, exactly. So you're suggesting that it appear here, but it's struck out.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. And you could even not even have the language, you could have section 54, just have that section 54 struck out, so we remember to talk about striking it out and see if the committee agrees.
Just like a written record of our.
And just so,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going through all our decisions and discussing them at the same time,
Sounds good.
in order, so, yeah. Section 5.3. Okay. You can continue with the house as passed.
So section 55, the House added one position in the office of the Attorney General, Court Diversion Assistant Director. In FY26, that's budget neutral, no additional funds, but that would be an FY26 request. And the committee will see additional language in this section in their own packet relating to decisions the committee made to add additional positions. Section 56, so this is GovRec language, just updating global commitment match numbers. Section 57 is GovRec language, just correcting that funds should be directed to the Liquor Control Fund rather than the Liquor Control Board. Section 58, this relates to extending the sunset of the telephone tax by 1 year. Section 59 does a similar thing for the communications property tax. Section 60 is GovRec language, just recommending or just correcting where funds are appropriated to, so clarifying that it is to ACD's Department of Economic Development. Section 61 is GovRec language. This is part of that there's a couple of things relating to Act 181. This is one of them, disaggregating that PTT language from Act 181, so repealing it there, so it all lives in Act 113, the FY26 or FY25 budget. Section 62 is another similar change, so this is just correcting the name of where funds are being appropriated to. Funds can't be directly appropriated to VSHA, so this directs them to the Department of Housing.
Why can they not be directly?
Because it's a non-state entity.
We have some other non-state.
So, for instance, VHCV, you can directly appropriate to VHFA, you can't,
What about the
VSHA,
Vermont
you
Symphony Orchestra?
can't.
Can we give them a directive?
Kind of, it goes to the agency of administration,
Oh, yeah.
and they
Oh, they do. Okay.
grant it to the Vermont.
So they can direct money to non-state organizations, but we can't.
Yeah, why is that?
And I believe
It's a
that
privilege
there are
that they
some.
can
Because-
consider.
Don't we have the power of the purse? We can direct it. Under what authority? You're saying we don't have authority to appropriate?
Their purse has looser strings.
There is, I think there's also some history to it.
Yeah, I know we don't
But
want
there's a
to.
line item that says that it goes to the Vermont Symphony, so it's not like,
If the committee would like to have a discussion about the $1 to the Morgan Horse Farm, we can do that.
Yes, that's later. That comes later. Okay, I'll save that separation of powers discussion for later.
Section 63, so this is GovRec language clarifying, it was not legislative intent to strike an appropriation of ARPA dollars or indicate that that was happening. So this language just corrects that to make sure that that appropriation isn't inadvertently struck or viewed as having been struck. Section 64, so this is a reduction of an appropriation to the Natural Resources Board. So two things are happening here. It was reduced, but then there's a transfer to the fund. So it's not taking away money, it's just changing how it's directed. And then because of Act 181 effective dates, the language needs to be updated to reflect that it is the Land Use Review Board, not the Natural Resources Board. Section 65, this is compensation for overpayment to towns. So there are two districts, the Cannon Town School District and the Northeast, or the Kingdom District, Kingdom Choice District. So there's a lot of strikeout language here. It's not changing the amount of money, it's just as it was written, they weren't able to execute it. So it's just clarifying that.
what school district is that?
Cannon and then Kingdom Choice. Canaan.
You're from the Northeast Kingdom.
I'm closer to Cannon Mountain than I am to
Yeah,
Cannon.
but you're from the Northeast Kingdom.
Section 66. So this amended the uses for a $15 million general fund appropriation. So this added in language in the GovRec so that those funds could be used to fund unanticipated statewide costs related to recovery efforts from declared disasters. This language was in the GovRec FY26 budget. The House pulled this in. There were other changes in this section of the GovRec that the House opted to not pull in. So for the committee's awareness, the House pulled out part of that GovRec section, but not the entirety of it. You'll also see language in this section changing the blueprint for Health Hub and Spoke program from a 2-year program to a 3-year. This isn't additional funding. They just, because of startup, the pilot needs to be pushed out. There's language in the SAC packet relating to this. DEVA requested an update to the language. So trying to achieve a similar purpose, but rather than extending it to a 3-year, just noting that unexpended funds can still be used for that same purpose. And then you'll also see in this section, this is where 50,000 of that 850,000 to the judiciary that was going to be reverted, and the House opted to not revert it. 50,000 of it is in this section. This is the ADA, accessible bathroom in the Essex Meeting House.
Yes, I want.
Sorry, perhaps other folks have a different remembering of this than I do, but I'm going back to page 25, the 3-year pilot. I had recalled that it was just that they wanted to start a year later, not that it was a longer pilot program. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Right, so because of startup, the intent was just to amend the language so that the pilot could continue.
Okay,
And that's exactly why DIVA asked for a further update to that language to reflect that the pilot isn't going to now be a 3-year
Right,
pilot,
right,
but they'll
right.
be able to use funds
So
in the
that's-
future.
It'll be in.
it'll be in the next.
Yeah. Section 67, so this expands uses for the $11,800,000 ERP appropriation. So this just allows for it also to be used for human capital management so that all of these ERP related things can be funded through that. Section 68, Technology Modernization Special Fund. This is a statutory update. Funds can't be appropriated to a fund, they can only be transferred. So it's just taking that out of statute. Section 69, Workforce Education and Training Fund. This is a repeal of the fund. And then you'll see those funds in an earlier section are being returned to the general fund. This is a defunct fund, so it's been cut out. Tobacco Trust Fund. So this, again, just clarifies transfers rather than appropriations. Section 71, this was legislative intent to extend the notice period for the marking of underground utility work. So this just bumps it from 48 hours to 72 so that there's adequate notice time. Section 72 relates to statute relating to the acceptance of grants. This adds in office. So there are some state entities that are offices, such as the Office of Racial Equity. This allows for the acceptance of grants for those entities. Section 73, this is inflation adjustments to some authorities that the Commissioner of Finance and Management has relating to the transfer of appropriations. So those had not been updated since the early 2000s, I believe 2000, 2004. So you'll see 50,000 to 100,000, and then later on, the Commissioner of Finance and Management may adjust the balance within an account of an agency or department. Now $200 rather than $1.
What that, did the House change it?
That was GovRec language that the House accepted. Section 74, this is GovRec language relating to debt service funds. So this is in alignment with, I think in the description it was called the haircut. There are a couple of sections making sure that statute accurately reflects GASB principles. So the House accepted these GovRec sections, section 74, 75, and then 76. And the Treasurer just spoke about further technical tweak to section 76. The words underwriters fees were added by the House per the Treasurer's request. The Treasurer's office in their memo noted that there should be an and following underwriters fees. That language isn't in the packet I passed out, but it is not, but that and will be added to the language.
Can that be seen as a Scrivener's error?
Yeah.
And we put the word and in there. And amounts for reserves. Yeah.
Section 77.
He's doing that on his own.
Yeah.
I'm way out ahead on my skis on that one. Section 77, so this is another repeal of the defunct fund. Section 78, this relates to the VHFA revolving loan program. So this is giving the authority to the agency to use discretion when it comes to subsidized unit rental increase, allowing them to accept something that's in excess of 3%. I believe the committee heard testimony on that last week.
Yeah.
Section 79, this relates to the Human Services Caseload Reserve. So the House added language saying that directive language saying that the Secretary of Administration shall unreserve and transfer funds from the Human Services Caseload Reserve to the Child Care Contribution Special Fund as necessary to maintain a balance that appropriately supports the state's statutory obligations to CCFAP. The committee will see language related to this in its packet, tweaking what the House did to achieve a similar purpose.
In section, what, section 80 or 80?
In the House version, this is section 79.
Oh, right, yeah.
I have a question about 80, which are the intent language.
Yes.
So it says, it is the intent of the General Assembly that any unreserved and unallocated balance. So in the language above, it talks about the balance appropriately supporting state statutory obligations. There's no daylight, I'm assuming, between those two ways of framing it.
So
in other words, we're talking about anything over and above what is statutorily required. So as an entitlement, if the spending goes up, that amount goes up because it's statutory obligation. But down here, it's talking about unreserved, and I don't, I'm just wanting to make sure that unreserved doesn't mean something else.
So section 79 is saying if, for instance, the CCFAP program were to be at risk of running a deficit, the Human Services Caseload Reserve Fund and transfer should occur to stand up the program. Section 80 is saying if there's any money in the Child Care Contribution Special Fund that has not been allocated for the CCFAP program, that money should remain in the fund and not be transferred out of it for other purposes.
Got it. So in essence, we're saying this, so these two things are not mutually exclusive, they're both in force. So if it ran below zero, this would kick in, and if it runs above what we need, this kicks in.
Right.
Got it.
Section 81, so this is language relating to the Department of Corrections Facility Work Programs strategic plan.
I'm sorry, one more question. Is this ongoing, or is this just for the coming?
So that is amending statute, so that would be ongoing. And the recommended tweak that SAC has in its packet is also an amendment to statute.
Okay.
Section 81, this is Department of Corrections Facility Work Programs. So this is report language relating to facility work programs to evaluate efficacy of those programs, program outcomes, and financial sustainability of the programs. And I believe Senate institutions had a further tweak to this section, so the committee will review that later on. Section 82, this is language relating to the stabilization grants. So this was House added language, and in the committee's language packet later on, you'll see the committee's updates to this section. Section 83, this may be an instance where the committee would like to see an omission reflected in its language packet. So there's a group of students that, because of the way the high school completion program and the adult diploma program switched over, a group of students that are eligible for diplomas who was believed may not be able to get their diplomas if there wasn't language assuring that they could. I believe that the Senate has heard from the Agency of Education that this language isn't necessary because of policies that they've adopted. So that would be for the committee to determine whether or not it would be removed.
Still, so it's in the Senate.
So the Senate hasn't made a decision on whether or not to remove this section. If it does,
So it wouldn't be anywhere else. Yeah, okay, so maybe we just, we mark that in here just a discussion point.
Section 84 So this relates to maximization of discretionary exemptions for SNAP. So this is directive language. The House added to say that DCF shall fully utilize the state's allocation of discretionary exemptions in SNAP. Section 85 relates to marriage license fees. So part of those funds goes to the crime victim services, and sorry, the domestic and sexual violence special fund, which is then directed to the Center for Crime Victim Services. Without this repeal of that language, the amount of that marriage license fee would be reduced from $80 to $60. So this would keep it at $80. Section 86, this is the other element of where you see that judiciary money. So 800,000 for upgrade to network wiring. Section 87 is House added language. This is the Sergeant at Arms purchase and installation of an X-ray. So this is the forgiveness, not permission section. Section 88 relates to the House's changes to the General Assistance Emergency Housing Program. So the funding is in section 50, and then the policy changes in this section here. Section 89 is standard annual language relating to carry forward authority, and then section 90 is the effective dates.
Okay, any questions?
Just in 83, the diploma, I thought that was the handing out of the 120 that were left over.
Yes, so the House added this language under the impression that those students would not be able to get a diploma without this language.
I thought that's the testimony that we received.
Okay. We've had additional language, although some of their language would prevent a subset of that group from still not getting the diploma, so.
It was the people in the transfer to the new system.
Right.
We implemented the new system, and the new system came into place July 1st. And there was 120, I think it is, that were left without a diploma, and this would give them a diploma. I'd hate to see somebody that went through the whole process and did the work not get a diploma.
I'm proposing we leave it as the House.
Yes.
Because the AOE did have alternative language that they wanted.
When we strike this.
Yeah, well, they
right,
weren't
that-
supportive in changing the language in the first place.
Yes.
Okay. So.
Just
What's
saying.
your question?
Caps in
Senator Bruce, what question are you?
Sorry, I'm on top of page 43 and just confirming that if we strike through on line 4 and between April 1, 2025 through June 30, 2025, that we are in effect lifting the cap during that time.
Yes, so that would be part of effectively keeping the cold weather in effect until until July 1.
Got it. And then July 1, if we don't do anything, the cap is reinstated.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if the committee has further questions about that, it might be good to have Katie McGlynn come back in as well.
No, that's my only question. I don't know about anybody else, but.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Grady. Any parting words?
I can go through the administration's technical letter with the committee quickly and then come back with the language packet in a little bit.
So were these things not, oh, because this is what House, this is what the administration wants us to make changes to.
Correct.
So they're not in here. I guess, yeah, is there anything in here, if you can go through it quickly to see whether you should add it to the Senate? Okay, I think we're okay with it all, but.
So in section 4 here, you'll see an addition of $45,000 from the general fund for court-ordered mental health evaluations. So this is personal services, and should be added to personal services, not operating expenses. So that's that correction there. The change to section 52, that's related to the PTT updates. So you'll see updates to that in your language packet later on. Section 55 is just a change to how things are drafted. So adding in, changing where these positions were added in the old language would be administratively cumbersome for them. So we ask that we don't do it that way. Section 64, this is just reflecting that since the NRB is being referenced as the LURB here, that the title of that section should change as well. Section 66, those are those DIVA hub and spoke updates to the pilot language.
So do you have different language? I had a note that you might have different language, or did you already?
It might be slightly different, but substantively the same. Section 79 on page 4, that's another just request to change how we draft it and not make extra work for the folks over there. And then the rest of this document relates to amendments to the cash fund statute. The Joint Fiscal Office determined that that issue is not time sensitive and recommends continuing discussions of that as part of the FY26 budget discussion.
Section 78. So the House pulled that whole section. The governor wants us to put it back in.
Right.
And I think we agree with the governor. JFO is also saying there is a need to change the language to clarify it, but there's no need to do it with the DA. So we could
Correct.
pull it out. That'll give the corrections committees more time to figure out exactly how to work that.
Correct.
So we'll see it again in the FY26. Okay. So now you're going to go over this.
I think based on the committee's request, I should probably update it so you can see those omitted sections.
I think we can do that.
Okay.
Just on the fly, we don't update it.
Okay, on page 1, you'll see this is language relating to disaster assistance grants to municipalities that were hit. DR 4744 relates to a disaster that struck Addison in 2023, and DR 4810 is that first July disaster from 2024. And then this is the same construct for distributing those grants.
This is stuff that's struck from like last year. What is that? Section 1.
Yes, so sub 1, sorry to jump ahead, sub 1 relates to funds that were meant to be directed to Addison municipalities. The funds were insufficient, so that wasn't executed. So two things are happening here. That appropriation is being struck, and then a new appropriation of $1.8 million is being added to address both that Addison disaster and the first of the 2 July disasters from last year.
Okay.
On page 4 and page 5, you'll see on page 5 the highlights. Those are the latest updates to that PTT allocation.
And why did we need to make this question? Just if I can explain it to somebody.
So there was language in the letter of legislative intent on how the PTT allocation should work because of the discrepancy between statutory formula and Act 181 changes. So the administration sent over language allocating it one way. The House it didn't align with the House's interpretation of legislative intent, so those numbers were updated. Then the administration, to align with legislative intent, sent over updated numbers. And then in the letter of legislative intent, that 7,300,358 appeared as, I believe, 858. So the Senate version has the latest and greatest when it comes to those allocations.
Okay.
On page 6, the first update you'll see here is a transfer from the general fund to the emergency personnel survivors benefit
So I
fund.
guess we should, it would be good if we just close these out as we go through them. Now that I believe that. Well, let's go back to the beginning of this document. The first is the municipal grant, which is on page 1, 2, and 3. Are people okay with that? I mean, we're gonna go over the dollar amounts later, but this is the money out to the, whatever that was, 30-some towns, Amy, do you remember how many? Something like that?
This is what we did before.
This is what we did last year, the same formula, so just basically doing what we did last year, this year, and then except making that correction for Addison County, because we tried to add them in the budget and then
Yeah.
didn't put enough money in, so we're carrying that forward. So is it, everybody okay with that? Okay, so that's closed out, we're gonna do that. So, and I assume everybody's okay with these correcting the property transfer tax numbers. Okay, so now we're at section 52 of page 6.
So yeah, in sub P, you'll see that transferred from the general fund to the emergency personnel survivors benefit fund. So this is what the treasurer's memo requested, 220,000, so that they can make the survivor benefits payouts. I believe 2 of them need to occur before the close of the fiscal year. So this money would bring the fund total to about 320,000 and allow them to do that.
Okay, any comments on that? Okay.
I got a quick question on that.
Yes, I know.
What is the payout?
$80,000.
Okay, thank you.
Further question.
Yeah,
So, after the anticipated payouts, they have some left over?
After the anticipated payouts, there would be 160,000 in the fund. In sub C, you'll see updates to language relating to ERAF, match, and advance. So this would include other disasters, new disasters in those ERAF changes. So this allows for, in fiscal years 2025 and 2026, for the state to advance up to 70% of state funding match related to disasters in 2023 and 2024, and for the state to advance that match prior to completion of projects. So
Just extending what we're doing to the new floods and so on.
right.
Okay, and as soon as people are okay with that, but before I forget, the abatement language, that's
So-
not in here?
The abatement language I have separate for the committee to review. I have that language available if the committee would like to review it later on.
Yeah, well, we can, I guess we'll go through this document and we'll look at the abatement.
On section 53, you'll see this is the Senate adding in an additional reversion. So this is where the rest of that 20 million is getting pulled back in. So 14 million appeared in the GovRec as an appropriation to the treasurer to put that money back with the treasurer. The House struck that, which brought them to 14. The Senate is taking the remainder of the 20 million, which shows up here as a $6 million reversion.
Okay. People okay with that? I assume? So section 54 is the language on page 13 of the House passed version. This is the language about the pre-waterfall.
Where's that?
It doesn't exist.
In the Senate version, it's not there, so other than a note that we're not including it. So I'm proposing we strike this language in that it's not needed to do, this is about the fiscal year end, we're talking about the budget adjustment. And I think we heard from the treasurer talking about, we'll know more when we get to the the big bill, the budget, about if there's anything that we need money to carry forward to the next fiscal year, we can deal with it then and not have this notwithstanding and kind of vague language about any interest of this.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you're talking about what, yeah,
That language is very
D,
squishy.
D, so we
54D.
we take it out and we'll deal with, the issue I think is that the administration and the House was trying to do,
This one,
I agree with it,
taking this one.
but not in this way. So I'm suggesting we strike this subsection D.
Yep.
Okay. You okay with that, folks? We'll have an opportunity in the budget to address it if need be. Okay.
On page 9, this is where you'll see some positions that the Senate is adding, so 2 positions to the Human Rights Commission, and then 1 additional position to the Office of the Attorney General.
Why did the 43 turn to a 47? Because we forgot to do that before.
Because you're adding more positions.
We're adding 3.
Wait,
So the House added 1 in the House
Oh,
version,
that-
that 43 changed to 44, and now with these 3 positions, it changes to 47.
Okay. You're good at that.
Can I,
Yes.
and if we include the treasurer's ask from earlier, that would bump that number up again.
No,
So that
just-
appears in
Oh,
a
okay.
different section of
Never
the
mind.
bill.
Amazing.
So those treasurer positions were created in Act 78, the FY '24 budget. So they show up in a separate section of the budget adjustment. And that's just tweaking the position title.
So,
So
Yeah, Senator Norton.
so how many positions did we actually add to the Attorney General's office?
2. So you'll see the House added the Court Diversion Assistant Director, which is a classified position, and then the Assistant Attorney General, which is an exempt position.
Solicitor
But
General.
one of those, the money was already there for.
So the Court Diversion Assistant Director position, there's no FY '25 money request at all.
And why is that?
I don't believe they anticipate actually hiring a person for that position in FY '25.
Why make it in that 525?
I believe so that they can hit the ground running with the recruitment process.
But they can't access the money anyway.
Right.
So is that necessary to have language in there that can't they hit the ground running anyway with no appropriation without this language?
The House felt compelled to include this language.
It's a
Okay.
house thing. It's a house thing.
This is the pre-trial. I thought there was some,
I don't remember.
but there was something
House
from last
We
year.
spend all day in committee.
There, it was,
We do.
this had something to do with last year. It wasn't just a new thing that they added. This was a pretrial court that they were extending. It wasn't just a blanket request. Do you remember anybody from JFO?
No, I do know that you have to have, the position has to exist before you can,
Hit the
in order
ground
to
running.
hit the ground running.
But I remember that it,
Otherwise,
And they would very much like to hit the ground running.
yeah.
Okay.
But I seem to remember it wasn't just either the Attorney General or the House saying, oh, we need this new position, that there was some connection to last year's budget. Or that's how I'm remembering it, it was,
My notice is that they have the funding.
they already have the funding, so it wasn't, I don't think it was, for some reason we gave them the money, but we didn't give them the authority or something like that. That's what I remember, so. I think it's okay, but Amy will do some more research on that. Are people okay with the 2 positions of human rights and the position of the Attorney General?
I'm good with the human rights. I'm not quite sure I'm good with 2 positions at the Attorney General's office.
Okay, well, would you be okay with the one in the Solicitor General?
Yep.
So we'll get some more information about the court diversion assistant director. Because we can't answer your questions, I will keep that open. And approve these other, the two human rights and the Solicitor General, Assistant AG.
Yeah.
On page 10, so this is where you'll see those updates to the position titles for those treasurer positions.
Yeah, that's like a technical change, I assume people are okay with that.
Mhm.
On page 11, so this is the language related to the hub and spoke pilot. So this is getting rid of 2 year, but instead of adding in 3 years, the House did, just adding in language saying that unexpended appropriations shall carry forward. On page 12,
People okay with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
on page 12, another change to this section. So this is where the Joint Fiscal Office at a prior appropriation, the purposes are being expanded for consulting services.
Yeah, Captain Ben came in and explained that, are people okay with that?
Mhm.
People, when I say people, I mean senators.
Yeah, we could do a referendum.
On page 13, this would be the Senate version of the section relating to the update to the Human Services Caseload Reserve amendment relating to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. So rather than including directive language stating that the Secretary of Administration shall make a transfer in the event that one is necessary, this just clarifies that the Child Care Financial Assistance Program is one of the allowable uses of the Human Services Caseload Reserve Fund. So it does not have directive language.
But the other piece of language directs the lack of.
So that language was directive, and then the other section was intent language, saying that funds wouldn't be removed from or taken out of the Child Care Contribution Special Fund. So
Right.
this directive language, the House's directive language wouldn't appear in the Senate bill. This would just include it as an allowable use.
The childcare has its own special fund. And
Yes,
if they get to the end of the year and there's a surplus, that should stay in there.
yes, but the other piece, if it goes below, the other piece of language directs that it will flow.
And so the Senate version of that would not include that language. It would just include the Child Care Financial Assistance Program as.
Why wouldn't we include the other?
This is a proposal from Senator White, basically.
The thinking here is if you reach the place where you have to dip into the Human Services Caseload Reserve, childcare should be on an equal field with Medicaid and everything else.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
That's fine, okay.
The whole point, I thought, of here was that the administration was saying, just take it out of this fund, don't take it out of that fund. But if we're losing the guarantee, then it's not an entitlement anymore. Then we're saying that people may apply for it and not get it, which I can't.
This just Medicaid's an entitlement.
Yep.
And this just puts everyone on a level playing field with the Human Services Caseload Reserve. This is not saying that childcare shouldn't be in that place. This is just if we get to the end of the year and we're in a recession in a bad time, that everybody, these are the things that are entitlement programs that should be.
But there's a swap that's going on, right? The governor's taking money out of the excess now, and in return, he was saying the caseload reserve will cover this if there's a shortfall. But now he's taking the money and we're saying the shortfall, should there be one, is not necessarily
I'm
covered.
fine with that for this year in this place. But going forward, I think all of the things that we've made as, like Medicaid
Yeah.
and the programs in Medicaid, they should be considered equally. It shouldn't be, just considered that, just because, what we've done in childcare is the new thing,
Yeah.
does not make it, any more important than, healthcare for a single mom.
No, understood, but that takes us back to the original move by the administration where they're moving money out of the special reserve. And then they were offering a way to make it whole in the event that it needed it. So to your point, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying, given that we were okay with the governor's move to scoop that money this year, it seemed to me that we were making sure that there would, under no circumstance, would there be people applying and not getting the money.
So Grady, you're saying that this language on page 13 of the Senate proposals was we would not have the language on section 80 of the House passed.
Correct.
Or the section, I guess that C, the Secretary of Administration shall unreserve and transfer funds, that part is also.
It would, correct, that directive language would not appear in the Senate version of the bill.
And it would only be this reference to the
I would just say, from my vantage point, I would say permanent language in statute going forward that, and this is what this is, childcare should, in the Human Services caseload reserve, which is reserved for all of the human services pieces, entitlements and everything, childcare should be looked at in the scope of that fund on the same level playing field as everything else, not any higher or any less than anybody else going forward. For this year, if you wanted to do something separate from that, I could agree with that, but I don't think on a permanent basis forevermore it should be treated any differently than any of our other entitlement.
And I think what you said is the compromise, which is we make it clear that we're okay in the budget adjustment with the governor scooping the money from the child care fund, and it would be a shall use the caseload reserve for the year. And then going forward, the intent language makes it clear we're not going to do that in the budget, so we won't have the problem in the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What I don't want to create is the view that just because childcare is the new thing on the block, that it's more important, in my mind, the single mom getting health care.
Agreed. So, great.
I think we put back section 80 back in.
Yeah.
So section 80 was not going to be cut, but yeah, I think per the committee's discussion, the thing that makes the most sense is to add in a subdivision to section 80 for FY25 related to that. So largely pulling the language that was in the House version of section 79 into a Senate section
Because
80 that includes
the
that
House
language.
was permanent language.
So section C,
Grady's clear on what we're doing.
section C would still remain gone. You'd have the line that you have on.
So the goals of both of those sections will be consolidated into one section of session law rather than amendments to statute.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to consider this section open until we see your construct.
On page 15, highlighted at the bottom here is what Senate institutions added to this language. So this just notes that the business plan to improve program efficiency and self-sustainability that's requested in this report should note either the plan to improve efficiency or clearly identify funding sources to address deficits.
And we got that language from our institution, Senate Institutions Committee. So I'm assuming people are okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, page 17.
On page 17, this is report language related to the stabilization grants. So this requires a report of DEVA due on December 15th, 2025, to account for the grants that were distributed in this $10 million appropriation that's being added to Act 113. And the details of what should be included in that report.
I think the most important thing here is the analysis of the grant program outcomes and any recommendation for enhancement, because I suspect this will not be the last time.
Gonna try and make it not the last time. We can't,
I
we
wish,
can't
but
do this.
I wish, but look at
Works in the motel.
look at what we've gone through with nursing homes.
Well, that's true. Are we doing any, is there any consideration in here of providing the grants based on need? Are we keeping silent on that?
There was no amendment in this proposed language to eligibility surrounding the grants.
I'm not opposed to any of that.
No,
But unless it's already in the.
don't see it there.
No, this was designed to be after the fact, because we've had a reporting, for example, of all the nursing homes that
Right.
got it in that piece. And I think some of these situations are pretty delicate.
They are very delicate.
There could be some reference to that, and that reference about the taxing resolves in number 113. Because that's where the funds were
Right.
before.
Talks about the financial status prior in number 2, trying to figure out how to do it without opening up some sensitive.
I think the whole intent here is to give money out based upon
Need.
and not going out of business.
Right.
Oops, sorry.
Have you shown this language to the Department of Vermont Health Access?
We had the conversation generally, I haven't shown this directly to them, but we had the conversation with Stephanie and I repeated basically all of this when Grady was there, and they seemed positive to it.
Can we send it over to them?
Sure.
I would like to just make sure that they're, oh, they're here, okay.
Oh,
Hey there.
Hi, Rich Donahue, AHS CFO. I have discussed this as you all have been reviewing language with DEVA, and they do not have concerns.
Okay.
okay.
So it's a report that gives the.
Report back will be the,
Well, and the recommendations, I think.
Yeah.
But does this also include the stabilization funds? So that, because we're just adding the stabilization money to this Act 113 program.
So the funds appear in Act 113 because that's where they're being added in this BAA.
We're adding them to.
But they're brand new to Act 113 in the BAA. So the $10 million appropriation happens in Act 113, but as an amendment to it in this bill here.
So always confusing when you're doing that, because 113 is the budget.
Right, so it's referencing it as though those funds were already appropriated,
Right.
but they're appropriated once the budget adjustment is enacted.
there's so much more going on that will have an effect on how this plays out. Okay. Interesting.
And I certainly think any language based on need, this is all based on need.
Probably the
Is
right.
it clear that the program is a grant program? Stabilization Because we're like in 3 where it says analysis of the grants, programs, outcomes.
Why don't we just say the grant outcomes? It's not a program. If we're gonna, it's like, if we put a program in place, then it's just suggesting it goes on again and again and again. trying to
With
get
analysis of
Of grant
each
outcomes.
grant's outcomes. Is that what we're asking?
Yes, so I can remove the and programs to just have it be an analysis of grant outcomes.
Financial inclusion. Okay, so we'll make that change. You're taking out the and the asterisk? No.
And program.
The and programs.
Okay. Are people okay with that otherwise? Okay. And then there's this section 83 question. And this is the adult ed. Where the House added language in that made sure that these 125 participants in the high school completion program will get their diplomas. We had some concerns. They wanted the programs to go through a new process to like sign up for a program, but some of those programs don't want, they're not doing it anymore. So the students that went through that program wouldn't be able to get their diploma because they couldn't meet the requirement that AOE wanted to put in.
It's new requirements for the, because we changed everything and the funding sources. I just think if some young person or somebody that is new to English went through everything and did the high school completion program, that under the old program, they ought to get the diploma just like everybody else. And it seems kind of, I'm gonna say what I think. It seems kind of cheesy that these people that did all that work didn't get treated and didn't get a diploma.
So I'm recommending we stay with the House language of section 83, which clarifies, kind of closes that loophole.
The anti-cheese language.
The what?
Anti-cheese.
I think it is cheesy, but they do all the work and trying to better themselves, and then they don't get a diploma.
I think it's downright hinky.
So, this is one more. This is the
Abatement.
Big changes.
Is it next per section?
So this would be a new section if the committee were to add it, to extend property tax abatement eligibility. So kicking it out from November 15th, 2024 to 2025, and then extending the declared disaster period for eligible property to December 31st, 2024. So this would include property damaged by disasters in 2024 and municipalities for property tax abatement purposes in that language.
Am I right that since it's from H-135, is this language the House agrees with?
So this language is no longer in a House bill.
Christopher Joint Fiscal, this language is in a House bill that is currently under consideration by the House. It is in the administration's version of the miscellaneous tax bill, H-135. The House has not acted on this yet.
So the House added the miscellaneous tax. We could have done that. We wanted to put it in the BA so that it could happen sooner.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so the House came to you and asked for this?
No.
No.
Oh,
I just said I'd rather do it in the BA, but we talked about it, and they said, well, it's in the miscellaneous tax, you could wait for that to go through the whole process, and do it that way, or you could put it in the BA. I think last year we had it in the BA. So I said, I remembered we had done it in the BA before, so
Yeah.
why don't we just do it?
Fine with me, I was just wondering what their posture was on it, but we'll find out in the conference.
Yeah, and I think they're fine with it. I've talked to
Okay.
Emily. Center Court answer. Okay, so are people okay with doing this? My understanding is, did you tell me, Amy, somebody gave me an estimate for the education fund impact. What was, maybe it was Emily.
Yeah, so we don't have the final education fund impact for this. Julia from Joint Fiscal Office is still working with the tax department on some of the details, but last year when we did this for the floods in 2023, it was about $1 million impact to the education fund. So we'll probably be in about that neighborhood, again, based on sort of generally what we know about what property was damaged in FY '24, and what abatements will likely come forward from that. But the number won't be finalized, is not final, yes, we're working on it.
I remember we did have some, on the floor, we did have a little bit of opposition, not a lot, when we did this the first time.
Because of the impact on the ed fund?
Yeah, but again, it was broadly supported.
Okay.
And it was a standalone bill last year, it went fast. One of the first bills that passed last. Half the way.
So there's two open sections, right? Grady?
I believe so, yes.
One is this
Yeah.
change, is a slight change at the end, I guess. I don't know if that's an open, that we're striking the on the program. We don't really have to see that, but we wanted to see language on
Childcare and human services caseload reserve.
that. And did we also want to, also on the, did we have, on the anti, I guess no, we don't have to.
Oh, was the
Just the human case.
Attorney General position?
Yeah, so on that position, see if we can find out what that other, you do have some more information? Okay.
So Amy from the Joint Fiscal Office, in Act 180 of last year, there was a statewide pre-charge program that was created in this position that is in the House version. And the Attorney General's office would be supporting that. They said that, so it's like July 1, 2025 is when everything begins, and so that's why they want to have somebody starting by July 1. They will be able to find the money in 25 fiscal year, this current fiscal year, but they will need 119,000 for 26.
So, but what was the reference to last year's bill?
The pretrial monitoring?
It's for juvenile?
So last year they,
Juvenile.
so what, I'm unclear what happened last year. In reference to this position.
So you passed a bill, Act 180, that gave the Attorney General office sort of the authority over a new program, a new statewide program for pre-charge, post-charge. And and my assumption is the Attorney General doesn't have anybody to manage this program.
So we gave them authority to operate a new program and they're like, oh, by the way, we need a person to do that. And we don't know why that didn't come up in Act 180.
That I don't know.
Yeah. I need to remember talking about in judiciary last year.
I don't know if it had anything to do with the monitoring program or.
Is that what it is? Senator Brief, do you remember what this is?
No, I mean, I remember the program, but not the cost that they're talking about.
So how much money is associated with this?
Well, we could do
in the
two things.
BAA?
We could, in the BAA, there's no money for the court diversion director for 25. It would cut your committing yourself to paying for it in 26, basically, unless you want to cut that position right after they hire it. And then Assistant Attorney General was $50,000 for this fiscal year, 180 going forward. We could strike a position and then wait till conference committee to see if there's any further discussion, or keep it in as it is now.
I don't know what, I personally don't know what justification there would be for striking it if it's already in Act 180. That it's.
Well, they gave them authority to do it in 180, and my understanding is that they now realize they need a position to do that.
To do it.
But I assume it wasn't just a sneaky way to get the budget in there, like,
Yeah.
give them authority, and then it doesn't have to go through appropriations, because there's no money. And then the next year you come back and say, hey, you said we had to do this, but now we need a position. Oh, but we don't need any money this year, then it goes into the fiscal 26 days. And then forevermore.
Did they think they were gonna get the position out of the pool?
I don't know. I could also.
Was this an attorney position or a non-attorney position? I'm trying to remember.
It's called Court Diversion Assistant Director, so I don't know.
I mean, if we're talking about the backlog and our collective efforts to reduce it, that diversion position is important in that regard. I can't remember the justification for the deputy. Wasn't it a deputy DA?
The Assistant Attorney General?
Yeah, or assistant.
And that position is in the Solicitor General's office, and that is to deal with all the federal lawsuits
Got
that
it.
we're dealing with the Trump administration. Which I think is an immediate need. I just don't have enough information about the court diversion.
Yeah, and along those lines, I'm just wondering if, early on, Vermont was actually filing those lawsuits. They were jumping on board with everybody else, just filing out, I'm assuming, an amicable brief to go along with whatever they're doing. So, and maybe there is a justification for this position, for a full-time position at $180,000 a year. I just want to hear more about that, is what I'm saying.
Do you also want to hear more about the court diversion director, or more about the Solicitor General?
Both of them, I would say. Because I'm under the impression Attorney General has a staff of 26 presently.
Well, we heard that testimony, so, I mean, and we need to vote the bill out today, so I felt confident from the Attorney General Clark's testimony that there was a need for that position. And I thought the court diversion assistant director was something that we had already approved, and we just needed to, like, correct an error on it, that we didn't have the position approved. So I think I feel like we could move forward. If there's some information that we could get really quickly when Grady is getting that language on the CCFAP language, then we could try to get that information. But I don't know where we're going to be able to get it.
I'm going to just move forward.
Okay. Yes. General.
Of a different topic. So if we're,
Yes.
okay, so, thinking about the treasurer's testimony today, I mean, I saw most of the things that he discussed in here, including, changing the name from VT Saves to the Economic Empowerment Division, et cetera. But I didn't see anything in here about the position that he was asking for in order to pursue the Climate Superfund stuff. So wondering about that.
Yeah, and I talked to the treasurer a little bit about that. I thought there wasn't a compelling case to put it in now. And I think originally, and why we got it so late to this process was he originally was thinking about it as an FY26, but then realized it would be nicer if we had it now. I think without having your committee, I was going to suggest having your committee take it up. But we'd have to do that before 4:30.
That'd be tough.
So I was going to suggest that you should take testimony on that in your committee, and then we could talk about putting it in the big budget. Because for us, it seemed like a bigger deal than we want, that I felt we could add in sort of the last That's how I felt. I don't know if the committee feels.
I'm fine with that. The other possibility would be taking the testimony and we could amend, when we hit third reading.
Right, you could always
Sure.
make a,
So if we can fit in some testimony and if there's a sense that there is a compelling case to do it sooner rather than later, then we can
you
bring
can
that
do an
case.
amendment, yeah,
Yeah.
do a floor.
Okay.
And then the committee can talk about what your committee found out.
Yeah.
You bring it. Okay, so with Grady making these changes, when Grady makes that, I guess it's the only one change. We can have Emily go over the numbers just to make sure everybody's clear on the numbers. And then we can look at that language, then we can have a vote on the bill.
Mhm.
Sound good?
So,
We're talking break.
I don't think we need to break.
Excuse my language.
We could take a short break. Okay, but you're not gonna take much time. How long will it take you to get the language done?
We'll find out.
Well, yeah, what's your estimate? We'll find out how good you are at your estimate.
But JFO doesn't do numbers in public, including estimations related to time or other,
Oh, do you even time?
even time,
No.
we don't do numbers in public.
That's good. It's,
It's a
Can
good
you, with
policy.
your
JFO
hands?
policy.
yeah.
It will be an amount,
It'll be an amount larger than zero?
then a zero, smaller than a million.
By close of business.
What units of measurement? Could you put it in a unit of measurement?
No.
Okay.